In a world where crisp sound can make or break a track, there lies a secret weapon, a magic tool that top producers use to make their vocals shine. Was that a good trailer voice? If you've ever listened to a track and wondered how those vocals sound so clean, today we're unraveling the magic behind it. And it all has to do with a little tool called the de-esser. The de-esser compresses specific frequencies and smooths out those pesky s and sh sounds that can pierce through a track. It's like spell check for your vocals. Normally when we record vocalists, they have to be really close to the microphone. This can overemphasize sibilants or the harsh frequencies that happen from certain syllables like s, t, and k. I always remember sibilants because it happens to have two sibilant sounds in it. So there you go. In normal everyday conversations, we don't really notice sibilants. We have the luxury of imperfect rooms, reflections, and background noises to take away a lot of those s sounds. But if you combine clean studio recordings and then the high-end boost that's usually put on vocals, then sibilants becomes an annoying problem. And now I'm gonna hop into the DAW and show you exactly how I do it in my mix. So let me play you a portion of this track, one that I know has a specific S sound, just so you can get a feel for what it sounds like. And I'll turn the de-esser off for now so you can hear the before, and then we'll play the later as we tackle it. Here's the vibe. I yelled her name as she was walking away, and we've been talking since almost every day. So first things first, there are a couple S sounds in there that I want to get rid of, and I heard them as they were going. Now, if you did hear these frequencies, it's probably because you're listening on speakers that are nice or on headphones, and definitely not because you're on your 20-year-old BlackBerry. The better speakers you get, the more sense this is going to make, so switch over if you can. Now, here was a part that I noticed that had sibilants specifically. I'm just going to solo this part here so you can hear it. Nice, and I will loop that pretty short span like that just so I can continually hear that S. I also love driving myself crazy, so the shorter I can make this, sometimes the better. It's masochistic, but it's effective. And let's pull up the de-esser and show you what it can do. Now, don't be intimidated by this de-esser. There are just 3 things that you need to know about it. The threshold will determine at what point to start de-essing. The range will determine how much to de-ess from, or how big that de-esser, how much it's going to take out. And then this point right here will actually just show you what part you're going to be de-essing. A de-esser is nothing more than a multi-band compressor that works in a specific frequency range. In this, you're choosing the frequency range it's going to work in. Now, this is FabFilter's Pro De-ess, which is my favorite de-esser, but if you're going to use the stock Logic plugin, it also works just fine. I use it all the time. This is just really visual, and I thought it'd be helpful in explaining it and showing you how it works. So let's turn it on and let's see what happens. We've been talking since all of these green waveforms here are the ones that have been affected or turned down by the de-esser. So it's not just the S sounds that's being affected, it's also the V sound from weave. There's a B, a plosive from B. If we want to find out more about our frequencies that we're turning down, we can click Audition and we'll hear all the parts being turned down in this frequency range. Yep, just like I thought, the B, the T, and the S are our culprits and are what are being turned down here. We want to adjust our threshold till we start getting a little bit of gain reduction, which you can see on the red bar here. Take a listen to this before and after. It really is just that simple. Before, after. It's subtle, but it really does make a difference. I think it sounded pretty good already, but let me really overemphasize the effect to show you what it can do. If you ever needed, for some reason, to give your vocalist a lisp, the de-esser is the tool to do it. Let me show you how. Let's just turn our range all the way up. We'll turn our threshold really far down, and guess what? All of a sudden, I think it's so funny to do that. Yeah, I've actually heard songs on the radio that have lispy-esque qualities because they're so worried about their sounds. Leave a little bit there, people. It's not that big of a deal. Don't overemphasize the de-esser, or else your singer is going to have a lisp, and then they're going to be furious with you. Now, if you're wanting to get really granular with your vocals, there is a better way than a de-esser to do so, and it's to manually edit the vocals where the big problem sibilances are. What do I mean by that? Let me show you. Instead of using a de-esser, I'm just going to go in here here and take this problem phrase here and isolate it. I'll go to the since part and I'll put that fade on right there.
We've been talking since almost. We've been talking since almost.
I'd want to clean this up a little bit. There's a little bit of a pop there, and I want to make sure that everything is as clean as possible. But this is how the best producers are in the world are doing it. They're actually fixing it in the edit stage rather than in the production stage where we add plugins later. This fade technique will also give you more control. You can make it longer if you want it to be more impactful, or you can make it shorter if you want the S to come out more. Another specific tip I'd recommend while using a de-esser is if you have background vocals, you only need one S to come through if everyone's singing the same line. Check this out.
Just like a gem, so rare, so true.
If you look at my background vocals, I've turned the range almost here. If I just solo them, you might think that I have a lisp, but it's the S from the main vocal that's coming through and filling in that S. You don't need more than one S, and having more than one S can just make things sound harsh.
In a world full of stones, I found my precious in you.
It's subtle. The S's are really, really light on these background vocals, and I even have some distortion on them to bring up some of those higher harmonics anyways. But the only S that I'm really hearing is from this main vocal. And if you're doing background vocals, I highly encourage you to follow this same thing. You only need one S. Now, with a de-esser, you can either put it after the EQ and compression, or you can put it before the EQ and compression. It doesn't really matter so much. Do what sounds great. What's cool about de-essing is it's one of the easiest plugins to just hear right off the bat without any prior training at all. And you can hear, is that S sound too piercing? Take out some more sibilants. If it's not piercing enough, does it sound a little lispy? Add some more in. It's that simple. And don't be afraid to chain de-essers like you would anything else. You can put a de-esser at the beginning and at the end. Put it before it hits channel EQ and compressor, and then put it afterwards. Why not? If you chain the de-esser, just like other compressors, usually you can get a more natural sounding effect by using less processing power on the de-essers themselves. I really like to use de-essers after the fact that I use EQ though, because for modern vocals, it's pretty much written in stone that you have to boost that high end, that top end, so you can get that air and that shimmer. So I'll almost always throw a de-esser after, but if I have an especially sibilant vocal, I'll throw one before as well. All right, hopefully now you understand how to use the de-esser and when I'd use it, and some other tips to help you out. But now I've got 3 more golden nuggets to supercharge your de-esser game that are just quick tips that you'll want to hear out. Tip number 1, as I said earlier, use multiple de-essers to get a more natural sounding result. Just like compression, if you have 3 de-essers to do the job of 1, you're probably going to get a more natural sounding result. Tip number 2, always listen to de-essers in context. If you notice, as I was listening to that de-esser, I didn't solo it. Sometimes you can solo it to really pinpoint the voice, but you never listen to the voice by itself, so why would you mix the voice by itself? A de-esser's job is to make the vocals sit perfectly in the ensemble, which you just can't do if you're in solo. And the last tip is to experiment with different de-esser plugins. My favorite is the FabFilter Pro De-ess, but all of the stock plugins that I've used for de-essers work just fine. They just are a little bit less sleek. Today, we've dived deep into the de-esser, that easy-to-use, helpful friend that lets your vocals shine. We've discussed its basics, its importance, and the artistry behind it. Go out and try it on your tracks today. I'm sure that your vocals are going to sound cleaner, more crisp, and more professional. And if you want to find more tips just like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as our newsletter, which we just started, called 5 Beat Friday. If you like this video, you're absolutely going to love that. We'll see you back here really soon for another video. Thank you so much for watching. Happy music making.